Been together so long we can't pretend. Remember the way we used to move, dance all night like young lovers do. Your heart is changing. Now we don't dance like we used to. Silent disco on the floor, baby. Mr. DJ, he'll get me through. When the beat's gone, you can't save me, baby.
This is Broad Radio. For you, by you. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Well, hello and welcome to Broad Radio. I'm Jo Stanley and my co-host today is the delightful Serpil Senelmis. Hi there, Serpil.
Hello, Jo.
I love sharing the show with you on this very beautiful day. I woke up and saw the sunrise and went, oh, good to be alive.
It was beautiful and pink this morning. It was very energising.
Yeah, it really was. Here's something that actually tickled our fancy as well today. A tweet from someone by the name of Bryden. He says, I don't want to alarm anyone, but as of today, Elle Macpherson is older than Ruth Cracknell was when Mother and Son first aired on television.
I love that.
It's a funny thing to compare Ruth Cracknell, who I actually just watched that show recently, and she wasn't that senior. She played senior.
We did actually represent women back in the day when Ruth Cracknell was on TV of that particular age to look and feel much older. Like if you remember the Golden Girls, right?
I know.
They were about the same age as the women in Sex and the City, and they looked like, you know, total geriatrics.
Absolutely. I would like to say, though, to Bryden, I'm not alarmed by that because actually Elle Macpherson, who I adore, have done since I was a teenager, and Ruth Cracknell, both of them, just giants of Australian screen and entertainment and on businesswomen, and I would happily sit at a dinner table with both of them. Wouldn't that be a nice dinner party?
That would be a lovely dinner party. Who else could we add to that dinner party, Jo?
Oh, well, we have some great guests on the show today that I would add, absolutely. We are going to be joined by one of the world's great illustrators. She is a world-renowned author of some beautiful kids' books called Claris, the Chicest Mouse in Paris, Megan Hess. But she has a beautiful book out about Audrey Hepburn. Would you put her at that dinner table, Audrey Hepburn?
Oh, my God. In a heartbeat. I adore Audrey. In a heartbeat.
She would have, oh gosh, just so interesting and beautiful and elegant. Anyway, so we're going to be talking about that. It is International Day of the Girl today. So this show is sort of, that's the overriding theme for this show today. There are 600 million adolescent girls on the planet. I live with one of them. And she is one of the luckiest ones, not just because she's safe and loved, but she barely lifts a finger. So, so I must say, she's one of the blessed of the 600 million adolescents out there. Not to suggest her life is easy, though. I think there's a conversation around, of course, we're here talking about International Day of the Girl because of those many millions of girls who are extremely disadvantaged around the world, who have opportunities for education and employment under threat. Their physical and mental wellness is under threat, and violence and poverty, all of those things that they experience. But outside of that, all around the world, I think adolescent girls face many challenges.
Absolutely. I think that, we have to be very mindful of the different challenges that girls face around the world. But we also need to be mindful of talking to individuals in Australia, girls in Australia, to encourage them, because you can't just say to them, look, you've got a blessed life compared to, it's a bit like when I wouldn't finish my food when I was a little girl, and Mum would say, oh, think of all the starving people in Africa, like as a throwaway line. which then reduces your experience. We can't reduce their experiences and their individual challenges when they're going through a hormonal period and trying to discover who they are, their identity, their place in the world. What do they want to do in terms of wanting to make their mark?
Absolutely, and it's such a critical time, and it's a beautiful time. I look at my daughter and all those girls in high school, as you see them go off to school, you know, they are very literally the future, but they just have so much potential and just that they're just brimming with, you know, that beautiful innocence of what will their lives hold, which I love.
And I think because the world is so connected, Jo, now, I mean, once, you know, when we were little girls, we weren't that connected. So we didn't really understand about the suffering or the pain or the lack of access of girls our age, whereas girls now understand. And I feel like they've got more empathy, they're more compassionate, they will work harder to ensure that while they lift themselves up, that they lift other girls up around the world with them.
Yeah, I think that's true. And that connection with other girls around the world, I mean, I have to say I am inspired and unbelievably moved by the girls, the schoolgirls and young women in Iran who are absolutely fearless in what is effectively a regime that could kill them, like has done, right? And they are leading this uprising. It is extraordinary what they're doing over there.
I mean, it's 43 years in the making, really. It's come to a pressure cooker point. If you clamp down on people for a long period of time, and if you take away their ability to make choices about their own life, it will crack. You know, it will burst at one point, and we've come to that juncture in history. They're facing a really dangerous episode in their lives because the regime has been one of the toughest regimes in the world. But like you said, it's totally amazing that they are putting their bodies on the line to communicate what they need.
It's just extraordinary, and I'm very inspired by them and all of the young women and girls around the world. The UN, in their International Day of the Girl, call upon us, all of us, to advance girls around the world in a few different ways, and this show is embracing 3 of those ways. One is around engaging with female leaders and role models, so we're looking forward to speaking with, I suppose, a few of those in the show today. The other is raising awareness about the factors that hold girls back in our own country, and so we're also going to be speaking with Jessica Brown, who is the founder and CEO of Warrior Woman Foundation, which is an extraordinary organisation that helps young women transition into adulthood. So it's that kind of late teens into your 20s, critical time where there's a bit of a gap, I think, is how we support girls there. And I really am passionate about centering people when we're talking about their stories. So we're going to be sharing the stories of a girl change maker and a leader. She is 12. She's a media owner. Her name is Abbie, and she's the creator of HerWay Magazine. She's joining us later in the show. Honestly, what a superstar she is. And again, an inspiration. You don't have to be an adult to be inspiring.
My favourite media mogul so far.
She is. Oh my gosh. I'm so inspired by her, I must say. Well, anyway, let's get to our first guest, though. She's an illustrator who has worked with the world's greatest designers and most famous women. But equally as important, she's put storybooks into over 500,000 little hands worldwide. Megan Hess, hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Morning.
Megan, it is so lovely to chat with you because I do have quite a few Claris, the chicest little mouse in Paris books.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I wouldn't say on my shelf anymore because my daughter's 13, but we've put them in the roof for later.
Yes.
And on this International Day of the Girl, you must have millions of girl fans. Do you connect with them? Do they reach out to you?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think I started more in sort of fashion books that were technically aimed at adults, although I realised not far into that, into my career making books, that I actually had lots of teenage girls and even really little girls sort of reading the fashion books as well. So that was something that I thought, oh, they're for adults, but I guess when they're illustrated, and there's really nothing inappropriate in any of my books, they're okay for little girls too. But then when I started working on the Claris books, that's when I started to meet really little girls. And I think, I mean, like anyone who's ever written any book or drawn any book, you're always shocked and blown away by anyone who's read it. You always sort of, because I think a lot of authors work quite, you're in your own little world, and you know the purpose is for someone else to read it. But then when you actually are somewhere out in the world, whether it's a book signing or someone comes up to you and they enjoyed the book in some way, it's a huge deal. And it's especially when it's a little girl. I think there's something about with Claris books, when it's a little girl who's read it and is all, full of gusto and excited to do something with her life and in the world, I feel very proud.
What sorts of things would they say to you, these little ones?
I think that's I always say the funniest thing is because adults are always very, they compose their words in a certain way, and they've thought about it, but kids just say exactly what they're thinking, and you get all sorts of feedback. I mean, I've had some harsh criticism as well about that I've never drawn a bathroom for Claris. Where does she go to the bath? I've had kids, holler me up at a book signing about certain things. But the cutest is when they kind of come really close and their little hot breath is going into my ear and they're telling me what they want to do when they're older or what their hopes and dreams are. And as a shy little kid that I was, I know that that's one of those things you only trust so many people with, and you're certainly not going to tell anybody else. And so, yeah, those little moments where they whisper that they want to do something amazing, be a pilot or have their own donut company or whatever it is. It really, it's cute. And I just think that's great that you've even sort of thought about that, or you're excited about that.
I think that's amazing that little ones are even thinking about what they're going to be. And that's a really precious thing that you're imparting to them.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because Claris, as you know, because you had the books when your daughter was younger, she does a lot of it in these giant couture dresses. And
spectacular.
But the funniest is the little girls who come to the book signings who are in a giant kind of dress in some way because they feel like this is the right thing for a Claris signing, and they kind of get up to the counter and then they've got their arm on it and then they sort of almost hit me up with their world domination idea. And I think that's the whole thing with Claris. You can do it all in a great dress, but they're definitely not passive. They're very entrepreneurial and have a great spirit to it. So I think that's the most exciting thing that's come out of meeting little kids, especially girls.
I love that description of Claris in her dress, Megan. But you've got a very distinctive illustration style. How did you find that unique voice? Did you have, mentors? Did you have inspirations? Was there someone that inspired you or something that inspired you? Often, writers are told to find their voice. How did you find your illustration voice?
I think it was just, and so many different creative people say this, but I think it was the only thing I was good at. And so I think when I was little, it was the one thing that, I would draw my classmates, and even though they were terrible drawings, I think in some weird way they did kind of look a bit like them. So there was something there, and I just loved it. As a kid, I was quite, I was quiet, I was pretty shy, a little bit introverted. I'm still pretty introverted, but I found drawing really both relaxing. It was an escapism. It was something that I just enjoyed. And I honestly think anything that you do enough of or that you love, you get good at. I have this theory, and not everyone agrees with me on this, but I think if you are really excited to learn an instrument, even if you're not musical, and you just continuously are learning it or practicing it because you just enjoy it, I think you will get good at it. So I think for me, it was just something that I literally just always did. And in terms of finding my style, I think, and I say this to a lot of students when I meet them, because that's the question they always ask me, how did they find their style? And I always say, if you just keep drawing, your style finds you. So you eventually get to a place where the characters I draw just become second nature, and the line work is second nature. It evolves over time.
I think that's so true about writing for myself. You just got to keep writing, and eventually you fall into your voice if you do it enough. I really think too there's a value in doing something for the process for your mental health. Do you find that? And I think it's sort of lost a bit sometimes these days.
Yeah, No, completely. That was one of the light bulb moments I had, I don't know how many years ago, was that I realized, and I don't remember what made me realize this, but I just realized that the actual process of doing things was the big finale, not the actual finale. And I found myself waiting for the next thing all the time. You know, I can't wait till that happens, then in the future I'll do that, and then this will come, and then this, and then, you know, even everything, you know, till next week, that's going to, you know, and I think at some point I realized that thinking like that means that you are never actually there. You are always waiting to get to that place. And I don't just mean that in a career sense, I just mean that in every sense, just actually enjoying the present and the moment. And that was a big change for me. And it just means that, you know, I'm not waiting to finish a book when I'm working on it for that relief that it's all done and then it's there on the shelf. It's more just really enjoying the day-to-day of rewriting, re-illustrating, and enjoying the process.
So true. The process. Yeah. we all wish things away to get to the end, and then you get to the end, you're like, oh, is this it?
It's the journey that's the joy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it is that, and it's one of those things, and we kind of all know it, but I think it's one of those things that you have to, not everyone, but for myself, I have to remind myself continuously that this is the best bit, just working away on something. Just being present in that. Now I sound all spiritual. Too early in the morning
that's
for
my
me.
favourite thing. I'm mad for spiritual. I mean, so let's talk to the books that you've created, and this particular one, Audrey, which is a delight because we love Audrey Hepburn, of course. I mean, the book itself is beautiful, the illustrations. But
Thank you.
I've learned a lot about Audrey. I wasn't sort of aware of her early years as a child and teen during World War II and that time. That was really illuminating for me.
Yeah, well, me too. And I always say that Audrey Hepburn was the first. I think she was the first person that really made me tune into fashion. Like as a kid, I think I never even thought about what I was even wearing until I saw Breakfast at Tiffany's, and it was the first time I was really intrigued about what is she wearing, what is this dress, and I think that started my love of fashion. And then I've loved all her films and someone who works in fashion, her connection to that. But it wasn't until I actually really started working on the book and researching it that I didn't really know a lot about her childhood. And I knew that she'd vaguely done something for UNICEF at the end of her life, but I didn't really know a lot about that either. And when I really researched her life and I discovered how full circle it was and how difficult her childhood actually was, and you know, the fact that she did have to hide, she was in the war, she was completely malnourished, she, you know, they had to literally wait for food samples and, you know, very sparing amounts of food from UNICEF when she was a little girl. And I thought, you know, because we all just know her as this chic, iconic Hollywood star, and so it was interesting. And the fact that she spent all of her, what I call her third act, as an ambassador for UNICEF. She was kind of a really heavyweight humanitarian, which a lot of people know, but a lot of people don't know. And, you know, I feel like at that end of her life too, she was really wealthy. She won all the Oscars. She could have just had a really easy kind of end. And she really was one of the first kind of celebrities who used her fame, I guess, to actually draw awareness to something. And because she'd suffered that as a little girl, I think she's a really amazing person. I could not find a bad picture of her or anything bad said about her. Not that I would have included it. No. But she really was, you know, one of those people that you think, God, what a life. Yeah. Incredible.
Megan, speaking of, you know, what to include and what not to include, I love that you gave us a really different perspective of Audrey because, you know, I've always loved the black dresses and the big glasses, but, you know, finding out about her experience in Nazi-occupied Holland was just sort of, you know, put hairs in the back of my, you know, it was humanising her. But is there a certain level of, I guess, tension or pressure put on an artist such as yourself when you're actually bringing to life an icon like Audrey Hepburn?
Yeah, it was. And it's funny because in many ways, when I first started working on fashion books, she's probably the topic that's always been in my mind. But then at the same time, I've always thought, but she's so, everyone loves her and everyone has their idea of how she looks and it's polarizing, her favorite film between different people. She's one of those people that I was almost scared to do it. And also because I've always really admired her and found her really inspiring. There's something about that almost puts you off doing something on someone like that. But I felt like when I got to the stage after I'd done 2 other biographies, which was Coco Chanel and Christian Dior, and I thought, I've sidestepped Audrey. It's time to do it. And look, and if people... And I took it on the approach too, because when you work on biographies of people, even with Coco Chanel and Christian Dior, you do get, lots of people have varying opinions on it, and they what is her best film or what was their best moment in fashion. So I knew that with Audrey it would be heightened in that sense, and I just had to approach it from when I was 5 years old and I first saw her in Breakfast at Tiffany's. What did I fall in love with? And what are the things that I've discovered about her story that really resonate with me? Because I think that will resonate with other people too. And even people who have, Audrey diehards that have all the Audrey Hepburn books. What could be different about this? Because obviously her life is her life. You can't make up anything new and sneak it in. But yeah, and just getting her likeness. I mean, at this, I don't know, I'm not sure which book this is in I don't know how, I think there's about 10 or 12 books before this book that I had done. And the covers always came together quite easily, but this cover was the hardest cover because every cover that I would draw, everyone felt when we sort of put it out to my publisher and the covers team, everyone felt like, no, I don't see her. I see her with the short hair for the cover, or I see her with when she was this look or that look. So it was trickier to draw her than I expected. But I enjoyed it all the same.
Oh, look, you've really captured her. And I really love too your nod to fashion and how important fashion is for many of us. Like, I think that fashion is the sort of thing that can easily be shrugged off and, it's all very frivolous. But actually, right from when I was a girl watching Breakfast at Tiffany's, and then when I was in New York and I was at Tiffany's, and it just that really felt very momentous to me because it represented my history and my family and sitting watching that movie with my mum and my nana.
Yeah.
And then I know that you illustrated Sex and the City and what fashion came from that. Like, fashion means a lot to people. It means a lot to me. I'm moved by it.
Yeah, and I think I always look at it like it always marks a moment in time as well. You look back at fashion moments can completely make you look at an old photo and go, no, I can't believe I wore that. Or, you look back through the eras.
No, never. Never a mishit for me.
Midriff tops.
Yeah, stonewash, whatever it is that makes your skin crawl. And yet you look at, I look at my daughter who's 16 who looks at stonewash and thinks, what's the problem? What happened? It affects you in different ways. And I've always looked at fashion as something to just enjoy. And occasionally in fashion can be, overly serious to certain people, and it can be stressful to some people. I always think that it's something just to be completely enjoyed. And I think because I've always been more of an observer and someone who's sketching fashion shows and then creating the books, as opposed to, I've never felt any pressure to kind of follow trends, and I don't think anyone should. I think fashion should be something that you just completely enjoy, even if that means you're not really into it. Even if that means that your fashion is that you're just comfortable. That's enjoying it. Yeah, I think it should.
I was going to say, but I feel like we all have a fashion spectrum, right? So, you did the illustrations for Sex and the City. The thing that stands out for me from Sex and the City was the Manalo Blahniks. I think there's no way would I be able to walk in a straight line in those.
Yes.
I'm more of a flats, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Audrey Hepburn type of girl. So what's your spectrum? Because I feel like we all sit in a fashion spectrum. Where do you sit in?
And it's evolved over time. I admit probably when I was in my 20s, I wore a lot of uncomfortable things and shoes that were uncomfortable because I liked the look of it. And I think you get to a place, I think the best place you can get to is finding a style or clothes that you feel really good in and that you are actually comfortable. And so for me, I can't wear a certain heel above a height anymore. I just refuse to do it because it ruins a night. If you go to something and 10 minutes in, your feet hurt, it actually ruins the experience of wherever you are. So I think it's finding things that you feel good in. You feel like this feels like me, but I'm also kind of comfortable. So if I were to go to a daytime, someone's barbecue, I would wear a sandal that's completely flat and maybe a floaty dress that I feel great in, but it's completely comfortable. There's nothing. I hate tight. And I hate anything too high. But that's just me.
Yeah. No, I understand this. Yes, tight. No, there's no place for tight anymore.
There's no place for tight.
Anything
that involves uncomfortable underwear is out.
Yeah. And I refuse to hold my breath and hold my stomach in anymore.
Absolutely
no. Thank you. I've lived a life and I'm not doing that now.
That's right.
But that's one of the, again, going back to Audrey and just to wrap it up around this beautiful book, that she really inspired me in what you read, that she just said, no, I don't care what the fashion is. I am going to wear the flat shoes and I'm going to dress the way I wish to dress. I don't care what everyone else is doing. And again, amazing at that time.
Yeah, that is the thing that I think is mind-blowing. And it's hard sometimes when I talk to younger girls today about what was so great about Audrey Hepburn, it's hard to picture. But when you picture that she came around in an era where Marilyn Monroe, Sophia Loren, everything was about, having a tiny waist and really voluptuous curves, and she didn't have any of that. And the fact that she changed that to kept her boyish figure, refused to do shoulder pads or pad out her bra, and cut her hair short. Even that at that time was a really big deal. And she just kind of created this look and was confident in it. And everybody saw it and went, yeah, that's actually, she looks great.
Yeah.
Which was really difficult at that time. I think to go back and look at all the women, and even when you look at, the films of that time, who was considered attractive, she really was completely different. And I think she just had a confidence with it. And and it's still today, if you look at any picture of her today, you still think, God, that looks great. She still looks amazing.
Absolutely love it. Do go and get the book. It's absolutely beautiful. I think handy for Christmas if you're looking at a little, like this should be what everybody hands out to their
great
team.
Idea.
As a little, love your work this year. Here's a beautiful book for you. Thanks so much, Megan, for joining us on the show today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I love your work.
Thank you.
I'm in a new strategy.
Well, if International Day of the Girl is about highlighting the challenges the girls face and putting our hands up to help them reach their full potential, then our next guest is perfectly placed to help us understand how to do both those things. She's the CEO and founder of Warrior Woman Foundation, Jessica Brown. Hi there, Jessica.
Hi, good morning, ladies.
Can you tell us about the Warrior Woman Foundation? Because the work that you do is, I think, really unique to a not-for-profit.
Well, the Warrior Woman Foundation, what we do is we empower young women to make positive choices for a better future. And what we do is empower them to become resilient, independent, and capable of taking their place in the world, whatever that may be. And what we do is we work with young women who are between the ages of 17 and 25-ish. It's that emerging adulthood stage, which is in between adolescence and adulthood. And because we work with such underprivileged and underrepresented young women, they're not the average sort of 18-year-old. We have a particular focus with young women who are leaving the out-of-home care system and are forced to leave that out-of-home care system and foster care system at 18. And they're not equipped to, I know that when I left home at 18, it was a steep learning curve for me. But when you've been through trauma and abuse and, perhaps have not engaged in school and are behind in really, really important, subjects such as English and maths. They're behind the eight ball already. And so it's really, really important to be able to help these young women to, prevent them from becoming homeless. So, 1 in 2 young people who leave the out-of-home care system at 18 either become homeless, unemployed, incarcerated, or a first-time parent within that 12 months. And so what we want to be able to do is help these young women transition from adulthood, to support them and nurture them, and to be able to give them a safe place to go, a safe group of adults, women who are there to support them and to guide them, to impart the knowledge of life experience, and to be able to, help them learn the ropes of adulthood, but hopefully help them to prevent making mistakes along the way, even though they are learning lessons. We do tell the girls.
Jessica, you said that your program focuses on women leaving the out-of-home care system on their 18th birthday, when, all support ceases. Can you give us a sense of how many young girls we're talking about? Well, what are the numbers behind that? And what are they likely to struggle with if they don't have the right supports?
So it's about 3,000 young people leave the out-of-home care system each year in Australia. There has been some amazing work that has been done where Homestretch particularly have campaigned for the age of leaving foster care to be changed from 18 to 21. Many states in Australia have done that, and we're waiting for New South Wales to follow suit. This has worked extremely well in other countries such as the US, Britain, New Zealand as well. By giving them that extra 3 years of support can make the world of difference. And youth homelessness in Australia, half the population of youth homelessness are young people who've left the out-of-home care system.
It's probably something that people don't realise. Like it's to be literally on that day you turn 18, therefore no support for you, and the rest of the world just assuming that you should be able to manage the pressures of adulthood just magically without any real mentoring. I think that's delusional. Obviously that can't happen, but most people don't understand that these young people are pushed into that space and left floundering.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I left home at 18 and because I went to university, and that was hard enough for me to kind of learn. I came from a supportive family with all the resources around me that I needed. And, I do say that the courses, our Young Warrior Woman program, is everything that I wish I knew when I left home at 18. But we're working with young people who have been up against it since day dot. Many of them have been put into foster care or the out-of-home care system because of neglect and abuse most of the time, and have been taken away from their family. Many of them have been, I spoke to one young woman the other day, and she'd been through 14 foster care families. So that whole, being sort of uprooted from one school, going to another school, quite often, they'll say to me, I didn't even bother making friends, by the end of it, because, nothing was permanent. And so to have that uncertainty in your life, and that nothing's permanent, is really, really hard. And so many of them do turn to substance abuse. They have complex mental health issues. Being a high school teacher previously, I know that by the age of 15, many of these young people who've experienced abuse and neglect are 2 to 3 years behind in really important subjects. So, and they may even drop out of school altogether. So they really, really need that extra support. And that's where we come into it. We provide these young women with positive role models in their life. And, sometimes they only see what they know. So it's to be able to give them that, safe group of socially inclusive women. Our mentors are just so incredible. They're there to support them, to guide them, we call them wise warriors, and we call them our young women that we work with, our young warriors, and we think wise sounds better than old. A lot of them probably do think that we're quite old, but it's once they meet the group and realise that it's a safe group of women who are there, purely for, they're not paid in their volunteer roles. It's just, to be able to make a difference. And what we do is our programs actually are based on the self-determination theory. So it's very, very suitable for the young women that we're working with. So we have a three-pronged approach. So we have the life skills education, we have the connection to a safe group of women, and also the mental health support. And I think that's what we do differently with our mentoring program, is that it's holistic. So we spend as much time on the mental health side of it as we do on the life skills. It's all good and well to be able to say, here's how you cook, and here's how you shop, and here's how you budget. But if you're not able to regulate your emotions, if you're not able to get out of bed, you're not going to be able to sort of prosper. And we have two big focuses on the program that we run. Number one is financial literacy, because what we want is for these young women to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, and the other one is employment. So what we want to do is to prevent these vulnerable women getting into situations of, perhaps coercive control or financial abuse. And what we want them to do is know that they are able to be capable of getting a job, holding down a job, earning their own money, and to be able to do that. And so that's why financial literacy is such an important part of our program.
And Jessica, you've successfully matched 25 mentors with 25 mentees. Can you tell us how you go about this matchmaking process? Is there a specific criteria that you look for in terms of matching the personalities? Because I imagine it would have to be really complementary personalities that work together.
Yeah, it is a bit like a matchmaking process, and it's a really, really important part of the mentoring process as well. Getting a match wrong or right can, I guess, affect the end result of it. In saying that, all of our mentors are the most incredible women. We do look at different scenarios. It might be that a young woman has lost her mother to cancer. We did have a young woman in our program this year, and that was the case. And so we gave her I want to say it's sort of a mumsy type mentor. But we also, many of them have been out on their own for a long time. They don't want a mum. They want someone who's sort of that in-between person as well. So, yeah, we look at hobbies. We've got a few that are really, really into sports. So that was a natural, matching process, is to put them together. But also, we've got quite a few of our mentors who actually have a background in psychology or counselling, and so therefore we matched them with the girls who had what we felt was the most complex mental health needs. So we do put a lot of thought into that, and sometimes it's a bit of a gut feeling too, where you just look at the photos, we put them all around on the floor, and we go, I have a really good feeling about this match. And so we get to know the mentors quite a bit with training prior to that, and also the girls, and that helps to get to know them and their personalities.
I imagine it's extremely rewarding for the mentors as well.
Yes, we're very fortunate to have a really strong cohort that keep returning, which is wonderful. So that's a good sign. And these are women who, may or may not have their own children. These are women who maybe have corporate jobs that don't feel like they're actually contributing to the community. And so to be able to give them that opportunity to be able to network with other women around them, where there's no, they're not pitching to each other. It's just basically amazing women getting together and making a difference. And, I'm a firm believer that magic happens when women support women and get together. And that's absolutely is what has happened with the Warrior Woman Foundation.
I love to, and just to finish up, I love the connection that you make between this critical time in a young woman's life and then once we hit our retirement age. If you haven't set yourself up, if you haven't had the opportunity to really establish, as you say, employment, career paths, sense of self-confidence, it can really still have an impact even as we're going into our retirement age.
Absolutely. And that is why I'm so passionate about closing the gap, the financial literacy gap. There's a gap between men and women. Youth, whilst we rate quite highly with financial literacy in world standards, our youth do not rate very highly. And so, and trying to get them excited about tax and super and all that at 18 is really, really hard. It was certainly not something I was interested in. But looking back now, it's a case of I wish I knew now. I wish I knew back then, what I know now, and that's what we keep saying to the young women, is that you have to actually start now. You need to be able to think about your retirement, and that's why it's so important that we teach them about, their values of money and how they approach money, and are they values that have been put onto them through their childhood, or, are they limiting beliefs with money? And so we talk a lot about that. And then we also obviously do the budgeting, the tax, the super. We have this amazing organisation called Money Girl who facilitate our financial literacy program, and they even help them to learn how to invest on an award wage. But one thing that is so important about that we are absolutely passionate about is money and relationships. And so we educate the young women about simple things like making sure that you have any assets, in both names and things like that, making sure that you have control of, you have passwords to all of the bank statements and things like that, open your own mail, things like that. So it's that holistic approach, but also employment as well, because what we want is for them to be able to know that if the going got tough, they were left on their own, that they would be able to support themselves. But, and also just to let them know that women 55 plus are one of the fastest growing vulnerable groups in Australia because of a lack of, superannuation, financial planning, and that's staggering. It's so staggering. And I'm approaching that age too, and I'm thinking, gosh, that's just so incredible. So what we want to be able to do is to prevent them to be one of those statistics, to get them to start thinking about that and to get excited about it. And I think that's the bit that we working with Money Girl is we have been able to get them excited about their future. It's not just about saving money. It's about the empowerment of what having your own money means.
Yeah, I love it. It's wonderful.
Power of choice.
Yeah, power of choice. It's so wonderful what you're doing. Maybe you might consider being a mentor. I can imagine it would be extremely rewarding. So you head along to warriorwoman.org.au and go through the process, check it out, and, really engage with Warrior Woman, see if it's right for you. But of course, you can also donate. Thank you so much, Jess. It's been wonderful to speak with you, and all the best on this International Day of the Girl.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a wonderful day.
Whenever we're apart, we miss each other so much. So, please accept this daily dog as a sign of my love for you.
Broad Radio, talking inspo we love, info we need, and sharing more of us. Watch and listen live every Tuesday 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time at broadradio.com.au, or find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and LinkedIn at Broad Radio Oz. Talk to us live. Call on 1300 8 Broad. Catch up on demand anytime, anywhere, every time, everywhere. On the train, we'll be here. 2 a.m. existential crisis? We've got you covered. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Well, as we always say, we love it when you share your comments and your thoughts along the way on social media, on Facebook or YouTube, as we broadcast live there. We've got some comments there, Serpil.
We do. We've got Stacey who's saying to us, great work, and I love that you are connecting young women with great mentors. By educating these young women about supporting other women is great, and what we should be doing, our future will be in great hands. Also, she says, such great skills. Gosh, shouldn't we all have had this opportunity? Also important and not taught at school. So right.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. Triana, our producer over there, is nodding vigorously. I think about what I still am learning at 50, which I wish I had learned at high school. So much around that tax and super and financial literacy.
I don't actually ever recall learning about financial literacy other than perhaps a manager bank came to school one day and gave us all a piggy bank.
Oh, yes.
And told us to put some coins in it. That
it's
was
not really explaining because came from a single mum in my household was single mum and very kind of, well, basically poverty, right? So there was no understanding of what a mortgage is or how interest rates work. Oh, no idea.
Well, my parents had a mortgage, but again, I came from quite a poor family, working class, didn't have any skills in investing. I didn't understand what the term like compounding interest or any of those things that are thrown around until a couple of years ago. And I just wish there was like a time machine where you can go back and go, oh, this is how you invest.
Yes. And I often think about the friends of mine whose family must have had that conversation apart, like whether they were business owners or entrepreneurs or whatever their family setup was, that just put them so far ahead.
Oh, absolutely.
Without me realising I was behind.
Well, look, I was having a conversation with a friend just recently, a week ago, who has been investing for 25 years, and he was talking me through the ropes. And this is a skill set that he's passing on to his teenage boys. Amazing. And you get that legacy through what you learn through your family. But when you don't have those tools, and then you don't have the tools taught to you at school, you kind of muddle your way through life, and before you know it, you're approaching 50, and you're like, that's how you do it.
I mean, that's effectively what privilege is, isn't it? Yeah, we've just defined privilege.
That's right.
Really. But thinking very quickly too around if this is the International Day of Girl and what we were like as girls, right? I find it so interesting comparing us with my daughter. It's I go, okay, so they are rich with opportunity. And they are so far advanced. Like she was learning things in year 6 that I learned in year 11. So their knowledge and their understanding of just the world and what they learn and ingest is so far forward. But she has really underneath exactly the same pressures. And that is, I just want to be long. I just want friendships. When I was moving into high school further along, not my daughter, she's not there right now, but I just wanted my first romantic relationship, all of those things. I wanted to be considered beautiful. It's exactly the same.
I think, human needs don't change, Jo. We want shelter, we want safety, we want, things that we can feel rich around, where our cup is filled. And I think no matter where you live in the world, no matter what your background is, these are the core things that make us human. And that's why I don't think that changes, even though times have changed, even though the pressures are different. Like, we've got the gaze of social media on young people these days continuously. I can't even imagine the anxiety around that. I would have hated that, and I'm so glad I didn't live in an era where you're constantly watched.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was bad enough I didn't have the right country road jeans with my high school friends, but if I was on Instagram and still didn't have the right country road jeans, oh my gosh, the drama around that would have been so full on. But yes, the expectation for them is just so huge. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting time for our girls, and that even more demonstrates that we need to be there for them, just guiding them as we can. In just a moment, we are going to speak with one of these young girls. We're talking about them as though they're not in the room. Let's put them in the room on this International Day of the Girl. That's after this.
I'm in a new stratosphere.
Well, I have to say, Serpil, as someone who is extremely time poor, I like to find a resource that gives me as much bang for my reading time buck as possible. We've spoke about this earlier today, actually.
Very clever.
We're busy people, right? So I love very much HerWay Mag. I follow it on Twitter, but you can subscribe as well. It brings me basically every sporting event and game that a woman might be playing in, with results and interviews as well, all in one place. And I tell you what, if International Day of the Girl is all about amplifying girls, here is a change maker and a leader. At 12 years old, she is founder and editor-in-chief of HerWay Mag. Abbie, hello.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, Abbie, I just am thrilled to meet you. I've got to say, not many 12-year-olds decide to start a media company, which is what you have done. Why have you started HerWay Magazine?
Well, I guess just the main reason is that women's sport is just not covered, like, barely at all in the media. Like, whenever you turn on the TV or read a sports magazine. It's just men's sport, men's sport, men's sport. So I've always loved women's sport, and I've always like loved going to games, of whether it's AFLW or cricket or just whatever I can get to. So I was like, why not start a magazine and media platform about women's sport, so I can just spread lots of news and cover it if not many other people are going to, I guess.
So, Abbie, your magazine's motto is if she can, you can. I think you must have pretty strong views about the fact that, there's not a lot of coverage, but also women's sport doesn't get paid as much. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's exactly right. And kind of what HerWay's motto is, if she can, you can. It's kind of like you can't be where you can't see. And bringing pain to that, like variety of women that play women's sport have to have a part-time job, which it takes away from training. Like some female athletes have to drive hours every day just to get to training because they have another job, and so I think female athletes getting paid more is it's like the main point in kind of the motto, because you can't be what you can't see, and we're not going to see as many women if they have to have other jobs, which means that they can't play their real one as much. But there are definitely lots of reasons why women aren't getting paid as much, maybe because some people think that they aren't as good as the men, or some women's sport has only been around for a little while. But I think that the women's quality of just like every game that I've gone to see, they're all just really good, and it's really fun to watch. So I think women should definitely be paid more, although it might take a while, and it's slowly getting better, and we're right in prime time of women's sport, like exploding. I think there's still a lot more to be done, but I think we're slowly getting there.
Abbie, you're also a change maker, though, because there's not many women reporting sport. So already you're working towards change and having an impact, I think. And I'm very envious of some of the people you've been able to interview. I mean, I saw you with one of my heroes, Steph Chiocci, who is the captain of the Collingwood AFLW team, who just celebrated her 50th game. But that's just the start. I mean, from Lauren Jackson through to like such huge names. How do you feel when you're going in to interview these superstars? Because I'd be really nervous. Are you?
I definitely still get nervous, especially like when I started, I was really bad. My questions were like horrible. I think I've slowly gotten better, but I still get like really nervous before like lots of interviews. Like when I was at the Basketball World Cup and I was waiting to interview the players, I was super excited, but I was also like nervous. I was like, I can't mess this up. So I still get really nervous, but it's really fun, and interviewing is my favorite part. And I'm just like, I guess, so lucky that I get to have had this opportunity and that I get to do all these cool things. But I definitely still get nervous before all of the interviews that I do.
Now, since you've started, you've had so much support from sporting teams. I mean, people are actually contacting you to get players to talk to you, which is fantastic. But you're in your last term of primary school. You're going to be transitioning into, high school and playing with the big boys and girls, I guess. So where do you want to take the magazine as you transition from primary to high school?
I think it's going to be pretty hard because, I'm going to get way more work next year, and I'm not really sure I'll go next. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing until at least the end of this year, and I'm just hoping that I can keep covering women's sport. I'm hoping that I can get to a lot more events. Like when I'm older, hopefully I can do more traveling and be able to go all over the country to see events. I mean, the Com Games in Victoria are kind of soon, so I'm hoping to get to those, but I'm really just hoping that I'll be able to juggle high school while being a teenager with the magazine. But hopefully I'll manage.
Because you create a lot of content, I've got to say. Like, you are always posting and you're always across what's happening in the sports world. And I think, my gosh, just this girl. I'm astounded that you're able to fit it into your day. You must not do much screen time. I'm impressed, to be honest.
I guess it's pretty hard to handle stuff, but social media is definitely, I'm happy that I've started to use that, like Instagram and Twitter especially. But like I'm kind of going back to before next year, I'm hoping that I can maybe focus more on social media or kind of expand on that, like maybe using other kinds of like websites like YouTube as well, although I am focusing mainly on Twitter and Instagram right now. But yeah, I guess they're pretty good platforms to use because there's like lots of people that love all kinds of sports, but it's kind of hard because I'll post one thing and then someone might be like about basketball, for example, and then someone who's followed me that likes AFL might be like, well, where's this AFL stuff? So I guess
Oh my gosh.
once I start posting about lots of different sports,
Don't
it's
listen to
gonna
the haters. Don't listen to the haters, Abbie. Honestly. People, you
well, that's not
cannot.
what they've said, but that's probably what they're thinking.
I know, but you can't please everyone. It's
I guess
oh
so.
gosh, it drives me nuts. People, just pull your heads in. Honestly.
Abbie, speaking of social media, I have been stalking you on Instagram, looking at all the content, as Joe was saying, that you've been creating. And I had a big laugh out moment because you said you tried to stay up for the Matildas game and you couldn't. You fell asleep. And I was thinking, I hope it's not because it's not her favourite code, because I absolutely love soccer. Now, tonight...
I want to watch them.
You do love them? Okay, well, tonight they're playing, I should say this morning, as in tomorrow morning, 3 a.m. They're playing against Denmark. Are you going to be able to keep your eyes open?
I think I'll try tomorrow. I mean, I've had a lot of late nights recently, but I guess I just couldn't watch it last night. And I've also had school, so it was annoying.
Yes.
But, maybe I'll wake up at 3 a.m. tomorrow to watch the game.
You're busy doing another really important thing, and that is growing. I say that to my daughter who's 13, right? And I'm going to be annoying in an adult right now, Abbie. But the fact is, your body, there's so much going on, and you're going to be tired just from that. So, to step into a very boring adult role right now, be careful with yourself. But I have a very important question because it is International Day of the Girl. And I'm really excited to have you on Broad Radio because I think it's really important that we always centre the voices of whatever it is we're talking about. And you are a girl. So it's your day today. So can you tell us, what do you think are the best things about being a girl in 2022?
Well, I think, even 20 years ago, it was really, I'm not sure. I think there's just so much more opportunities for women and young girls now, in terms of sport as well. A lot of the players that you see today wouldn't have been able to play in a girls' team because there was just not a lot of, people were like, oh no, only boys can play this sport. But I think we're just at a time right now when, women's sport is growing. So girls like me have lots of role models. I have so many women that I can look up to now, while a couple of years ago, I would have had barely any. Even my friends at school that don't know, that don't watch hardly any sport have role models. So I think that's one of the cool parts, that the world is kind of changing, and we have, I think role models is a big one though, that women's sport is expanding. So
That's
it's really
lovely.
cool.
And what kinds of challenges do you feel that you are facing being a 12-year-old that are really hard sometimes?
I guess it's not so much anymore, but I was worrying at first that maybe people wouldn't take me seriously because, it's not every day you see a 12-year-old journalist, I guess. But I think it's just hard kind of juggling lots of stuff at school. A lot of my friends don't understand, so I can't really talk about it to any of them. But yeah, I guess that's one of the main reasons.
What do your friends talk about as being, do they talk about things that upset them or make them worry?
There's a lot of drama in my year and with my friends, I'll say that, but I don't have any friends, none of my friends like sport. There's a couple of maybe boys in my year that like men's sport, but yeah, I can't really talk about it to any of them. A few of my friends really good at swimming, so they know maybe Emma McKeon or maybe Ariane Titmus or whatever, but yeah, I can't really talk about sport to any of them.
Abbie, but do you have other cheerleaders? I know, when I first started in radio, I was 14. None of my friends were into audio like me. And my dad got me into it. I used to love hanging out with Dad in the radio studio, doing a multicultural program with him. And he was my greatest cheerleader. So I didn't need my friends. Who's your greatest cheerleader?
I would probably say the same thing. My parents have been really amazing, and they've helped me to do this since the beginning, so they would definitely be especially my dad, because he comes along to all of the events and he drives me everywhere, because obviously I can't get a license yet. But he's the one that's driven me to all of the interviews and all of the events, and he's sacrificed a lot. And also my mum as well, because she kind of helps with the shop part of it and all of the emails things. But my parents are really supportive of me, and I definitely have to thank them for everything.
So do you hope to be a journalist or a sports star?
Well, I do love sport, like playing sport myself, but I definitely want to keep going on the journalism track. But I do love playing sport as well. But hopefully, maybe I can do both. Although that's probably impossible. But
No, nothing's
I'll
impossible.
definitely keep playing sport.
So
I was just going to say, is that why Daisy Pearce is one of your one of the people that you look up to as a role model, because she does play and she is on mic
Yeah.
as well?
She's definitely one of the female sports stars that I've probably known about for the longest, for a couple of years before I started HerWay. And I think there's a lot of athletes that are really cool because some of them, a lot of them have other jobs, like I've said, so they have other things that I think it's pretty cool that they have two jobs, but it's, also sad that they can't be full time. But I think Daisy is very inspiring that she can do those both at the same time, and she has good views because she's played with the girls and against the girls that she's commentating on. But I think she's a really inspiring person.
So I think you're an inspiring person, Abbie, not just for young women and for girls, but also for everybody, because you've set yourself a goal and you've really just gone out there and just, you're just doing it. You're just going, I have a goal, I'm going to do it. So what do you say to other young people who might have hopes and dreams, but perhaps feel like, it's all a bit too hard, I don't think I can do that?
I think if someone has a dream, maybe of starting a business or playing a sport or just doing anything, just go for it. Because if I had not tried to start this magazine, who knows where I would be now. So it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me, and I'm so happy that I started it. So if anyone's hesitating about starting something or doing something, starting a business, like I said, or they're afraid to start a sport, maybe I would say just go for it, because you definitely will not regret it.
That is beautiful. Well, Abbie, you have a wonderful International Day of the Girl. It's all about you guys. I hope you and your friends know how special you are. We believe in your futures. We're very grateful to you.
Thank you.
Have a great day at school, Abbie.
Lovely to
Thanks,
meet
guys.
you.
Oh, is she not the most beautiful inspiration, beautiful little Abbie?
My mantra now is going to be, just go for it.
I know. She just is. I just love it. So fearless. And, we were talking earlier about this notion of precocious young people, right? And whether it's like sometimes when someone is young and really advanced, you always preface it with, oh, but she's not precocious. I actually think that word precocious should be taken out of the whole conversation.
Do you?
I do. I just don't think, why are they precocious? Because they might be, are they too big for their boots, or are they too confident? I don't know, because I remember when I was growing up, we were made to, you had to be small, you're not allowed to be up yourself or too ambitious. And I'm like, well, but maybe I'd rather precocious than being made small.
I reckon confidence is different to being up yourself, because I think what you need to be is to realise that you are as good as anyone else, but you are not better than anyone else. I think you need to walk that fine line between, I can do whatever I want, but I don't look down on people.
Yes, obviously you don't want to be arrogant or egotistical, but I think that we shouldn't put a cap on young people and wanting to be ambitious. There's no age at which you should not be ambitious.
Totally, absolutely. I think if you dream big and empower young women to dream big, they will solve all sorts of problems that we've not been able to solve.
I mean,
so
look
far.
at Greta Thunberg.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. 15 she was when she started her activism publicly.
And she ruffled so many feathers that even grown men were like, oh, I slapped her down. Look at me. I told a teenager off.
I know. I remember just thinking, oh, she's winning. She is winning when someone like Donald Trump is apoplectic about a 15-year-old. I'm just like, oh, good on you, Trumpy. This is not your future.
No, and we really should encourage. The other day I was talking to my nephew. He's only 15, and he was having a really robust conversation with me, and I was getting a little bit flustered, thinking, oh. And then he said to me very calmly, it's okay, Auntie. I like actually pushing the argument to see, where this ends up. He wanted to be able to tease out the conversation rather than just making things black and white. And I thought that's so great, because when I was young, I would have been told, end of. That's the end of the argument. This is how it is, and we don't continue. Whereas he was like, but why? I think X, Y, and Z. And I love that about young people, that they are really pushing the boundaries and not accepting just one point of view as that this is the absolute and end of.
Yeah, I love it. They're problem solvers. They see that the world needs to be fixed and they're doing it. We love it. Have a wonderful International Day of the Girls, Serpil. Thanks so much once again.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week for Broad Radio.
But boys like you tell pretty lies at 5 a.m.